from Running Wild.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm fine, yeah?
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
No problem, no problem.
Well, it's great to be able to talk to you again. I was able to talk to you last time for Rapid 4A, and it's great to be able to talk to you now for Blood on Blood, which is coming out next Friday.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've gotten the chance to be able to check out this album over the course of the week, and I just love what's going on with this album. It's just a really fun album from start to finish. It's got those great hooks that I love Running Wild for. It goes into different territories, which I appreciate, and it's just got a great overall feeling for the album, which we really need in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely, it was a long ride, because I started out working on the album. The first track that I've written was the title track, Blood on Blood. I wrote it pretty much during the final mixing session for Rapid 4A, starting out with that kind of point. And so it was a long ride. There was, some gaps in between where we, had to prepare some shows for 2017, there were a few months off then. I couldn't work on the album, and 2018 it was Wacken Open Air. We played as a festival headliner, and some illnesses concerning my person in between. So there were a lot of gaps until we then finished pretty much the record. Pretty much at the end of 2019, I picked the songs that should be on the album, the 10 songs, and luckily we, at the beginning of 2020, we could finish the drum recording session, before the first lockdown in Germany. So after that, I had time to, work in my studio and doing all the kind of overdubs and rework everything I was not satisfied with concerning the demos I did and all these kind of things. So it took a lot of time, and it was clear from the get-go there would be an album which had 10 songs in between, these kind of songs are pretty much different from each other. And that was from the get-go, because the first track I had was Blood on Blood, and the basic idea for Say Your Prayers and Wild Wild Nights, so completely different tracks, for that kind of thing. So I knew that kind of album would turn out very special concerning the songwriting and the production and everything.
And it's so great to hear that too, and just when you got those ideas running for you and you're able to adapt to those situations. I mean, the fact that the first two songs that you had were Blood on Blood and Wild Wild Nights are, it's great to see those contrasts, because they are two very different songs, but they're two great examples of what this album is all about.
Yeah, and also this was the starting point, and there were about 20 songs in the pool of the album, So, and I really had to pick then the 10 songs that should make it on the album, because I wanted to make sure that each song should add something to the album, new facets, new kind of styles to the album, which the other 9 songs couldn't. So that's why it was, and in the end, it was these 10 songs making the album, even if they are completely different. And I tried out to give every single song a certain kind of character concerning the sound. There's not 2 songs on the album that got the same guitar sound, or the same drum sound, or the same bass sound, or something like that. I really wanted to make sure to give each song its own face, so to speak.
Yeah, and I really think that paid off for the best, too, because it really gives it that full album experience. I mean, from start to finish, it's got those peaks and valleys that just really make it a fun album experience, rather than just a collection of songs. I mean, it feels like these songs are meant to be together, but they are so different from each other, and that's what's so intriguing from start to finish.
Yeah, that's what everybody says, because you can easily pick every day a new favorite song. that's the way it is, and it's always a really good album's always that way, So they really can also discover some new stuff. Doesn't matter how often you listen to the record. There's always new stuff you can find out about, and this is what a great album makes.
Oh, absolutely. So, with that in mind, I mean, obviously with the idea of wanting to make the songs so different from each other, did that come with any kind of challenges, or did they all start to just work out naturally when you were trying to write the songs out?
It was a little bit of work when I started out with this kind of experiment, one night, one day, because it has no real arrangement. because there's no verse, there's no pre-chorus and no chorus. It's always the same part coming over and over again. And that was a bit of a challenge, to make this interesting and to make this work as a song itself, because it's divided into three kind of parts, which is one night, the guitar chaos in the middle, and at the end, one day. And that was pretty much big work for that, to find out all the sounds and to choose them, with the clean guitars and all these kind of noises in between and all these kind of little things that make the song great, and these flying guitars above everything. So that was a challenge, even in the mixing phase, because it was pretty much hard work to bring out everything at the end, because there's everything. There's all the guitars, all the vocals, all the melodies, everything together, and to make it, all sound like, and to let it, that you really can hear all the small details still. That was a little bit of a work.
Well, I definitely say, from the fan perspective, that really paid off, because much like you were talking about before, the more that I listen, the more that I'm able to discover more with the songs, whether it's going deeper into the lyrical content, whether it's in the song arrangement, whether it's in the chords. I mean, there's so much deep in these songs that it has that replay value for that great reason. And if it was a bit of a challenge to be able to get some songs going on there, I definitely think it paid off, because the final product is so great.
Yeah, I was still about finished with the whole record, and it was about 1 week until I should hand over the tape to the record company. And Olian from SPV, he called me up and he said, okay, we want to push the album for 2 months. It will be out later because of several reasons. So you've got 2 more months to handle over the tape. And so I really had this paper with all these small details, I was still not completely satisfied with. And so the last 2 months I really could work on these small details and give it the last 5%, which now makes the quality of the album. So that was a very luxury situation. I never had that before.
Is there any particular examples of what fit into that 5%?
Yeah, there were some small details, especially in the song like Crossing the Blades, because the drums had been originally recorded for the single, so it was not done by Michael. He was just a supervisor for the drums. And so they were different, and all the sounds were different. So I really had to make sure to bring the song on the same level like the whole album was, So that's why I re-recorded the rhythm guitars then. Back in the day, I really had to do that. I re-recorded the bass, and I added some vocals, and I came up with the intro and stuff like that to make sure that this version also was different to the version of the single, and on the other hand, to make it fit into the album. So that was a bit of a challenge,
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up as well, too. I really do appreciate the fact that you did go and re-record Crossing the Blades, because I did love the original version that came out in 2019, but it's so great to see the album version have its own style to it and fits so well on Blood on Blood.
Yeah, because, the guitar sound didn't fit into the mix I was doing, the original guitars. It's why it was not because they were not played well or something like that. It was just about the sound, because I couldn't get them where I wanted to get them. So I just re-recorded them. I re-recorded the bass, and I added, the small melodies in the second verse, and added the intro to that, to make sure that we got a different version on the album and to make it fit to the other songs. And that was pretty much a bit of a challenge, to get this on the same level like all the other songs were at that time.
Oh, I can definitely imagine so. And, along with that as well, too, I mean, it's great to see so much detail that really went into this album. And again, like I said, it's really paid off when it comes into listening to it audibly. And I gotta say also as well, along with that, the album cover is just tremendous. I love the colors on it. I love the whole look of it. And it just fits so perfect for the album.
Yeah, I did this cover myself, so it's in real. It's about 90 to 90 centimeters. I did it in real, made from metal and made from different kind of materials to make sure it looks exactly the same it should look like. And then I took a picture of that, and Jens Reinhold, who did the cover, he reworked that kind of stuff, so to make sure that this really looks like an old painting or something like that, So, and it really turned out exactly like I wanted it.
Yeah, and I mean that's so great to see that too. I mean, the more that I've looked at the album cover, it's like I really do see those details that go into it. So it's great to see that just like making sure that all aspects of this album is exactly what you wanted it to be. I mean, whether it's visually, whether it's audibly. I mean, it was a lot of work going into it, but I just love the way it came out.
Yeah, because I've got some visions in my head because of how I wanted to show the story of these musketeers also in the cover and also on the back cover, with the paper and the dagger and steps into that and all these kind of little things and if you see the photos on the inner side, they also had done by me, and he reworked it to make it sure that it really looks like the way it should look like for this century.
Oh, very much so. And and speaking of that as well too, I mean, when it goes into the visuals that really go into it, I mean, when the singles have come out for Diamonds and Pearls and the Shellback, I really love the lyric videos as well too. I mean, both have their own different flair to it, but they both really match the songs very well.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a work to get that right, because when you work in the Pro Tools and you work completely digital, the magic is to make it, to let it sound like an analog record, even if you use that kind of things, and that's what I wanted to try out, and I really achieved that, I recorded with an amplifier, not with a camper amps or something like that, it's the same setup I used to record the guitar than I play live with, so exactly the same, and so that's why it makes this kind of sound, and it makes this kind of, an impact on a song.
Yeah, and that can affect so much too. And I mean, when you can find the right tone, when you're playing the right guitar, when you're playing everything the way that you want it to be. I mean, there's so many different variations that can go into it, making sure that you can dial in things right. So when you get that right combination, that's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I record the bass myself, and it's not played by Ole, because I have the right bass sound that fits to my guitar sounds I'm using. So could be a problem when other guys is recording the bass and he handles it over. So you could be in trouble just from the view of the sound. So that's why I'm doing this myself, to make it really fit into the song and fit into the production.
Oh, very much so. And speaking of that as well too, I mean, as much as I do love hearing the album, I can just imagine how good these songs are gonna sound in that live setting as well too. I mean, when shows and festivals and everything that starts to get back to some kind of normalcy, I mean, I can't wait to be able to hear these songs in that live setting.
Yeah, there's some songs that have been really done for live, like the title track, but there's also some songs we never could play live, which is The Iron Times and One Night, One Day. Because there's so many going on, there's so many different guitars and things. You really could do that you can't do that with two guitar players. It's not possible. And otherwise you should be having a lot on your computer just, to put it as a playback in, and that's what we not want. When we play live, we play 100% live.
Oh, very much so, and that's the way it should be too. I mean, you want to be able to play what you can, and if a song's not going to work out in that live setting, that can be all right, as long as you got the other songs that are meant for that live setting, and you're able to play them with two guitars. You're able to play that with the full band setup, and just really make it for a great set list for a great show.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to achieve, to make it sound live on the record in a way, so to have that kind of power and impact from the guitars, from the drums, and from the whole set. And, that was a little bit of work to get this to this high level, to let it sound like that, with the really hammering drums that really sound like being played live, and being played in the hall in a bigger one.
Oh, I can imagine so, especially when it comes to drums too, and you want to make sure that you get that real sound, you get that live sound, you want to be able to get that natural reverb that's going into the drums so it feels like it's in that live setting. I mean, there's so many different variables when you're recording an acoustic instrument like that, but when you dial it in, it's so killer.
Yeah, pretty much concerning this album, the drums have been reworked by myself completely different on each song. So there's never the same plugins, the same tools on the snare drum or the toms or something like that. So it's always have been done for the song, especially, to make sure that these drums sound in there. Sometimes you put the same drum sound for another song, it doesn't work because the guitars sound completely different, or it's played in a different key or something like that. So you really had to an eye on that, and that takes time really to work this out until the 100%.
Oh yeah, and this is definitely the kind of album that absolutely calls for that too, because just like what you said, I mean, there's some songs where one sound for the drums, for example, it's just going to sound perfect, but when you use it for a different song, it's just not going to sound right. So, being able to match the tones that you're looking for on any kind of instrument to make sure that it matches up what's going on in your head, and then that final product is what you want it to be. It can be challenging, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, you really need the time to do that, and it's also one thing why it took so long to do the record. And like I said before, there were some gaps in between that where I couldn't work at all. So it's not really 5 years; it's pretty much 3 years if you really put that right. So, but it really took the time to get up to this high quality, and I'm really, really satisfied for the first time in my life with the record. There were always small things, here and there where you're not very completely satisfied with, but this is the first time that I really say everything turned out the way I really wanted it.
Oh, that is just so fantastic to hear, and like I've said a few times now, I mean, I just love the final product that's come out, both visually, audibly, everything that's going along with it. I mean, it does just feel like that perfect Running Wild album, and yeah, sometimes it does take a bit of a challenge, but I mean, when you can look back and you say yourself that this is an album that you can be proud of 100%, that really means something.
Absolutely, and the reactions are to pretty much overwhelming so far. It gets from the best Running Wild album since Black Hand In until the best Running Wild album ever, or some guys said, it's a timeless album, and maybe when not the best heavy metal album of all time. So I said, okay, okay, really can stand this. This is great. But, it's really. It's a really special album to me, and from the get-go, when I started out writing on the material and I was working on that, it felt in a way like a debut album, the first album you ever did. Even it's, the 17th album I made, but it is a kind of feeling, there was something special with the album you can't describe or you can't explain in a way. It's just, it just happened, and I really had to, let it flow and go my way through that.
Oh yeah, and thinking about that as well too. I mean, especially when you've done 17 albums under the moniker of Running Wild, and you're able to look back and see all the different ways that you've been able to record, whether going through the analog tracks, whether you're going through Pro Tools, whether there's so many different variables that can go into it, different recording studios, different guitars, instruments, all of those things. And the fact that you can still get the sounds that you're looking for in 2021, and you're able to do that through things like Pro Tools, you're able to do that through your own kind of setup, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really satisfied, and I'm really looking forward to the next when the album comes out, because there's a lot of things going on now. It's pretty much heavy rotation in the clubs over, whole Europe. So really look forward to that.
Yeah, I've been seeing such great reception for the single so far, and for the lyric videos that have been going on with Diamonds and Pearls and the Shellback. I mean, It's just so great to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really satisfied.
Oh, I can imagine. And with the album coming out next Friday, I mean, obviously so much work has gone into this album to make it the best it possibly can. Like, when the album eventually does come out next week, I mean, what's going to be going on next with you?
In the first place, we really have to look forward, if we can play some shows the next year, because we have these 4 festival shows over Europe that had been originally announced for 2020 and now pushed over because of COVID to 21 and now to 22. It's not sure if we really can play them, because they're very big festivals with 100,000 people, something like that. For example, the Hellfest in France, and it's really look forward to that, but nobody can tell if we really can play them, because of that COVID situation. And when we can't do any shows, because we don't do any touring, we just do festivals or event shows. And I wish to just, very slowly start out with collecting material and stuff like that, because when I did the final mix for Blood on Blood, I wrote the title track for the next album. So it just happened. There was no plan I had for it. It just happened. I just had the idea, put it down on tape, and we will see,
Oh yeah, and I mean, obviously that's going to be some time until the next release comes out, but the fact that you've already started working on it, I mean, that's so cool.
Yeah, because when I handed over the tape, for sure, when you handle over the tape to the record company, it's done for you, because you finished that work, and so you can go on to other things. But it was not the plan to write a song. It just happened, and we will see. There's a lot of other material which is still there from the 20 songs I had. There's a lot of different ideas. They were not bad. They were really great ideas, but they were not the right for this album. So we have to wait and see. But we look forward to play some shows the next year, and maybe some more than the 4 shows when we can play them. Nobody can tell now because it's a problem, pretty much a problem. If you have these big festivals with the fans coming from all over the world and the bands coming from all over the world, could be a problem. How should they handle that with the COVID situation?
Oh yeah, and yeah, I mean, especially with the last couple of years that we've been living in right now, I mean, there's so many delays, whether it comes to albums, whether it comes to festivals, whether it comes to tours. I mean, there's when it comes into music, there's just been so many delays, and we're just everyone's hoping that next year that things can get back on the right track. And I know, I gotta imagine like being able to get back on the stage and being able to do something like a Hellfest and just being able to get up on the stage and just play like you used to, just pretending that COVID is just in the backseat, you forgetting it ever happened, and just being able to focus on the crowd in front of you. That's what I gotta hope for. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because we really wanted to play the new songs for sure. And so we also have to rework the set list. Because originally it was planned. We had to play the shows, and then I was going back to the work for the album, and the album will come out later. So the record company said no more than 2 songs from the new album. But now it's a different situation because the album will be out more than half a year when we play the shows, when we can play them. So we have to have a focus on that.
Oh yeah, and that can be a good thing too, because it will give people more time to experience the album too, and
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why we have to see, and I choose 2 songs or 3 songs we should play in the original set from 2020, and we will see if this is enough. When the album went straight to the roof, we have to think about it.
Oh, for sure. But, until then, just like absolutely hoping for the best when it comes to the festival appearances next year and everything that's going to come along with that. But, until then, an amazing album with Blood on Blood's coming out next week. Just 10 killer tracks from start to finish. And it's so great to see a Running Wild album of this caliber coming out in 2021. An album that I feel like the world needs right now. Just being able to hear like 10 really fun tracks to really be able to enjoy on different levels. And I thank you for taking the time to be able to not only talk to me about all of that, but also just like putting in the time and effort to make sure that this is the album that you wanted to make.
Absolutely, yes.